Okay, so we're heading on into our next poses. One thing I want to do just before we continue is just pulling that back, and then, oops, and then taking our curves, getting the graph editor, because that really should be open while we're animating. And the reason being is because, not because you want to look at this spaghetti all the time, but the reason being is because you want to be able to look at things as they're happening and just get a better visual idea of where you're at. Okay, you never really look at everything all together most of the time, but when we're working on a curve, you can see the curves, you can see where you're at, you can see what's going on with the curves, and it just starts to piece into your mind what's happening, and then later when you see an action, it'll make more sense when you're looking at the graph. Okay, so I'm just selecting these so we can get into an auto tangent mode. And you'll see that working a little bit smoother now, because I know some people probably going, oh, it looks kind of jerky and stuff. So you get something like that, kind of walking on there. We'd work on, the foot roll down and stuff a little bit later. I'm just moving forward with things here. In your first pass, you're generally looking for and concerned with contact, your passing, and your next contact. So again, if I just use my two next keyframe keys, which is my period and my comma, that I could flip through those really easily. I could see this, and then that's my next one I would be looking for, and then that one. Your second pass, you're working on your down position, right? You're looking on this stuff. And then later on the second pass, you would start to kind of blend things a little bit so that everything doesn't start and stop at the same time. And you would take certain things like maybe one arm versus another and just offset the keyframes a little bit so that they blend a little bit more. We'll do that a little bit later. But right now you want to just make sure that you set keyframes on these two things until we start getting into a mode of like working with just the arm independently, just the fingers independently, and things like that. Room for settle-ins and follow-throughs and overlaps and things. You would be keyframing those things if you're not offsetting keyframes. You'd be keyframing those things specifically on the control. So we move away from a key all button, which a lot of people tend to continue to use. And then, if like we're putting eye blinks in and secondary motions and independent finger movements and trying to overlap maybe the rotations or the translations, so the translation starts first and then the rotation happens, which can all be done in the finessing and polishing stages of the animation. And but that comes later, right? So that process changes a little bit as we move forward. Right now, I'm just blocking things in. Again, for the first pass, you should be having, your extremes, basically your contacts, your passing position, your next contacts, any kind of holds that need to be in place. And then you would work in, the second week, you'd be working on your down position, up position. So by the end of the second week, you should be seeing something like this. Okay, ideally, you should be seeing this. And for the whole animation, okay? Kind of working on the first and second pass together here in these examples, at least up front initially. And then I could do another series on tweaking things and stuff. But for your workflow, really, work on first, contacts, passing, contacts, holds, things like that, thinking about your timing. And then go back in for your second week and work on down and up and those types of elements and some overlap, follow through and stuff. So that you're heading into that third week just focusing on polishing things and tweaking things, changing things, working the timing some more, strengthening a pose, holding a little pose a little longer, things like that. And then you would have your cleanup, your last week. Also, if you shoot for that goal, it's a good idea because then if something goes wrong along the way, you have to redo something, you mess something up, which just happens. You go to a previously saved version, you continue to move forward. You get sick, you have family things that come up. You have room then to step away for a brief moment and then come back to it and continue to move forward. Okay, so ideally that's where you would want to be, and you'd want to be with like that with any deadline you have, so that you have a little wiggle room. Otherwise, you'll be turning in something you don't want to, or you'll be missing the bar and not you know, ending up with what you need to have. Ooh, and I'm seeing something. See, scrubbing through here, and I'm seeing something really interesting because that's the end product. That's my down pose. That's not actually a contact, is it? Like, that's a contact, right, for the heel, getting ready to roll over the top. So this, I fell into the pitfall of setting it up as it would look as if it was planted and all in place and solid. And in this particular case, I probably want, and I remember doing it now because I remember saying, oh, I'm going to put this down just to make sure that it laps over the front, you know, well, it's in the right position on the initial contact. And then I forgot. So I go back and just make an edit on that. Bring that toe, that foot up, bring that toe up and through here, and that'll get ready for the roll forward. Ta-da! Okay, now, so if we move forward in things, we go 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll be our down. 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll be our up, right? And then 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll be our highest point, or a drop, considering going off the edge. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. That's our contact. So at least initially. Now again, we can, once we have these keyframes in place, we can adjust the timing and stuff. You can use a dope sheet, you can use a graph editor to do those things. But this is how and where I'm going to set up this next particular pose. This foot's going to be coming off and making contact. So I'm going to bring that foot forward through here. Now I'm going to start to kind of turn that foot a little bit because I'm going to be stepping off straight forward, right? I'm going to be moving the body controls and the arm controls forward. So let's move that. These just kind of make them travel along with. We'll move that too. And we'll grab this last. We'll just move everything kind of forward where we're going to be, or ideally where we're going to be stepping off. We don't go too far off. We do want to start to make contact. So our weight's going to be down, right? This leg's going to be further down. Most likely going to make contact with the ball of the foot. Okay, so I'm already up on that, which is nice. We'll make contact here. So I put that in the right place. Make sure we get that pole vector kind of pointed in the right direction out front. And then our weight, remember, is between both feet. So let's work on the other foot first. This heel's going to be down, like we had set it before. And this toe left, let's kind of curl it over a little bit, because I know our foot's going to be flat at that point. And we can give a little bit of a heel bank so that it's at an angle so it's not poking through there, because that weight's going to be coming out on that. And then this pole vector for this knee. We'll point it a little bit there. This one will get it away from the body. So it needs to be a little bit more forward. Okay, so it's heading towards that center line through there. Okay. And let's kind of point it, kind of let it flow that path. Remember we talked about that path that it's going to follow? So have it kind of angled towards that path, how that's going to be. Okay. Now, if we're stepping off of something, we're making contact, we're falling, you know, at the point of the contact, but we're not all the way down. We're going to be a little bit back because we're stepping off. Okay, maybe not midway. We're going to be a little bit further back. And we're going to be arched back a little bit more because we're stepping off of something. We want to keep our weight back while we kind of place the foot so that when we shift the weight forward, the weight, it's less on the front leg. The front leg can absorb some of that weight as it goes off. Okay. And that kind of thing. And we'll take a look at that. This one I like kind of being back here because it shows like he's, you know, kind of keeping some of that weight behind. And this arm I'd like to see more out front, right? Kind of out to the side a little bit, right in there, because he wants to protect himself from this, right? He's kind of walking around that, wants to at least walk around that. Then we can think about what's going on with the hips. is if he's stepping down towards that, would the hips be shifted this way a little bit? Right, where he's kind of putting that hip out there. And is it shifted some because he's lowering that side to plant it to make contact? Maybe so. I would think so. Okay, so that actually kind of changes where our body position is going to be. So we grab the arms, grab the body, and move that up a little bit. Because I want, on the contact, I want the leg to be kind of straight. Because I want him to be able to drop down on that leg after that. I want to show the weight going on the leg. So let's make it a little straighter, like that. Okay. And let's look at this heel bank here and say, should that be pointed in a little bit like that? Because it's coming down to make contact. Should it be completely flat? Probably not. Give a little bit of prep for a roll to the outside, because that's the side that he's going to is that way. So let's pull this out in the front a little bit more. That's a little bit better for that knee. And let's look at this pull vector for this knee too. And maybe turn that out just a hair. Okay. So we got something like that. And I don't necessarily want that hip to go over. He's stepping off, so I'm going to turn the body a little bit as that body starts to come down and through there. Okay, and we'll adjust the back. Smooth the arm a little bit. I don't want it to be completely straight. I want it to be coming, this hand to be coming down a little bit. Maybe kind of point it out slightly like that. And like that maybe. And then we look at this back control. And we say, okay, want him to be leaning to the side. He is dropping down, so he's still arched. He's not going to compress forward yet. But we do have this shoulder that needs to kind of start to try to come across a little bit. Okay, because he's heading that way. Now, I'm exaggerating some of this so that you can see it visually too. So just be aware of that. That may change a little bit as we move forward. This would be dragging along because he's dropping off. So let's do that, and let's get maybe oops, wrong control. There, that butt control there. Gonna drop that off a little bit like that, so that it's kind of wanting to stay behind as he's dropping down. And we can give a little bit of this. So that's like in motion. Does that make sense? Okay, so there we go for that. Looks like there's one more right here. We could get that a little bit of scrunch there. It's really kind of flying, kind of dropping off through there. And we might even give it a little bit of a turn like that, so it's a little bit away from the arm. Kind of wanting to stay back over there as he's heading this way. So it's flowing this direction. Always thinking about those things. And then we'd look at what's going on with the head control. So at this point, he's dropping off for sure. I want that head down. And I want those eyes really looking at where he's going to be kind of dropping. At this point, we might even be able to drop this head down a little bit more like that. Instead of that neck control, we kind of compress him there on the drop. Okay. And we keep the eyelids open, but he's dropping down, so we might actually raise them even a little bit more. And our eyelids can maybe open a little bit, slightly, on the top. And the bottoms can open just a little bit more. It kind of gets a little bit bug-eyed on the way down. So something like that for our contact would be pretty good. Okay. Something like that. And I like that. So let's do that. Let's just take that one as that. Again, we can make minor adjustments to the things as we move forward. There's our contact there. We can go back into linear because that's really where we should be working at this point, at least for timing's sake, things like that. So just go ahead and do that. And then what you'll see is you'll see just a translation between here and that point, right? And again, you want the down position, this peeling off. You want the passing position. Let's go for the passing position, which is going to be here, and what that would entail. So body is a little bit more mid, right? It's a little bit higher, right? Because he's coming forward now. He's kind of coming up a little bit. This leg is the one that's coming out front and coming down, so it's a passing position. So again, we don't want to be on lifting the heel. We want it to be on the tip of the toe. We want the toe to be dragging slightly. And we want to control where that foot placement is. So if it's coming off and going to peel forward here, we might want to kind of hold that back here. So you might kind of flip it up and then come down. Right? We can change that, but that's basic, maybe the basic idea as we're flowing forward. Pull vectors forward. Again, I'm working up the character's legs. This foot here is going to be flat, right? So flat, and then the toe is going to be down in through here. It's probably even going to be curling over a little bit more because there's more weight on this foot. It's using for stability purposes. Okay, this foot like that. I'm going to put this back, kind of ride this a little bit more mid stream. A bit more towards the center as that's going. And we might have it be a little bit more like that, right? Because we're midway to the extreme on it. A little bit more straight. A little less bend in certain areas. The neck, I'm going to kind of hold it kind of streamlined there. And let's go ahead and just ride with the hands kind of where they are for a minute. Okay, so let's just go ahead and set a keyframe on that and see when we scrub through, see what it looks like. So a keyframe there, and then we can look and see. That's going to be your down position will be here, right, coming off, and then we'll get to our passing. So those arms are kind of starting to come down a little bit, right in through there. They're going to drop up. They're going to kind of stay up as the body drops here. So that's fine. I like the way they kind of come down a little bit first, and then naturally, and then they'll rise here because we're going to pose them that way. And then they might even rise a little higher here. I might adjust them from this position. Depends on what happens on here, on that pose. Okay, so let's go for that. So we have contact, step, and then another contact. See how there's some weight in through here, and he gets ready to fall, makes contact, but then there's no weight, and then there's no weight. And that's what's usually missing in the animations, and we want to make sure that we have that in there. Again, we can adjust that. We're just trying to get things in there that work and feel kind of, right now work for us as a basic structure, and then we can go back and tweak those things as we're moving forward. Missing those elements is where you fall short. And then it's like, okay, well, you're missing a whole portion of what you should have in that first initial kind of blocking in procedures as you're moving forward. So again, this would be first, passing, contact, passing, contact. Those for sure in the first week. Then you go back and you're working on this down position, this up position, this down position, and that up position. Okay, so let's work on the down position. So I want this foot to stay in place again. So I'll just middle mouse over and set that pose up. So, or at least for that foot. So I want the heel lift, that's fine. I want to go on the tip of the toe, and I want to be heading in that direction. So I'm going to go on the heel bank. So I'm going to roll that foot in. So because it's going off the edge like that and heading that direction. So let's just go ahead and set that. So we have that, and so now we see this. Now, what we do want is the down position, the weight to go on to that leg. Okay, it's going to lean to the side just slightly. The weight's going down on that because we're going to push off of that. So set that, and then we want this knee pull vector to be out in front and generally heading in the direction that we want. Right, so knees come a little closer together, but he doesn't want to get like knock-kneed. We could take the hips and put a little bit of weight on that, because as he's going down, the force is going through this hip, so this hip starts to drop a little bit, right? And we can bend this back a little bit, not as much as before, because we're not going down as much. It'll go down on the up as we go up. And following through a little bit. Arms. If he's going down, they could be going up slightly. In this case, I'm gonna drop them down just a little bit. And see if I like it. As he heads down, kind of relax him a little bit as he's moving forward. And then this is going to start to turn this way a little bit, because that shoulder is going to go actually this direction, because when this leg comes up that passing, he's going to start to straighten out, so he's kind of heading that direction. And then let's look at this here. It's actually kind of keeping an eye on that corner. I don't mind that so much. We just kind of let it just give it a small little shift, not much at all, just a little bit. And here he might start to kind of close those eyes down a little bit because he's trying to focus. And these kind of focus a little bit more. And these eyebrows start to come down a little bit. Okay. And pull those back slightly. We're going to mess with those some more though, because I haven't done much. I haven't done a whole lot with those through this little section here. But okay, so that foot's starting to head off. We're in that down. The weight's going on the front leg. He's balancing over that, trying to balance over that. I'm going to lean forward a little bit more, because that energy is going to get stored towards that heel, right? Want a little bit of the upper body kind of leaning into that as that body comes forward through here. Let's actually give him a little bit there. And that's nice because that gives him a look. He kind of starts looking at that a little bit more, through there. And then we're going to go into the highest position and stuff afterwards. So let's just run with that. Get that in place. So we get a compression that happens, and then a rising. He leans back, getting ready to step off. He starts to drop down, but he's going to go a little bit higher, right? That foot's going to come out a little bit more, and then he's going to make that placement. Now the weight comes in afterwards, right? So it'll drop off after that point. So he's got a step, another step, and then he kind of comes back. I don't like this so much, this passing position where he's leaning back, so I'm looking at that now and kind of scrubbing through here. Through that, it kind of pops back. I think he should stay maybe leaning forward a little bit more at this point. And through here. So he comes up, and through there, and then starts to drop. It just softens it a little bit, so it's not as strong. Again, we're in linear, so it looks a little angular, right? But if once we get all of those curves, again, selected and going into like an auto tangent mode, it starts to smooth out a little bit more. You see how he kind of compresses here, and then he straightens up a little bit too much there. Really need to key that. Gonna lean forward a little bit more. Through there, a little bit more upright. There. There. And that actually forces this arm to move a little bit forward, kind of travel with, because we don't want those arms to lock out straight. Okay, so something like that might be a little bit better. So he gets ready to step off. That works much better. Okay, so let's go for that highest point, and then we'll take a break. So here, we want to be continuing forward. We're heading in the direction that we're going to step off, so we want to be at a highest point. We want this to be more now onto the ball of the foot. Okay, we want this to go up more. He's going a little bit higher. Let's take this and put it onto there. We can bend that toe down a little bit more. So it feels like as this goes up, that toe goes down, so it rotates forward even though we haven't really moved the foot much. We're going to start kind of heading in the direction for sure that we want to be at. We're going to rise them up some more. Let's go even that high. Take the arms. Now the arms are going to come forward a little bit because he's getting ready to step forward. So arms typically, even though he's walking in stride, they tend to kind of come forward because we want to make sure that if we fall, if we fall and we trip forward, that our hands are ready to catch ourselves. So again, don't want to pull the control away from the arm. Want a little bit of bend in that elbow. So let's take a look at that from this angle. There we go. We want them to be kind of straight, but we don't want them to be popping straight and then bending again. So we're going to go out through here. Going to rotate that forward maybe a little bit more. Bring that arm forward into this area like that, because he is rising through here, right? This foot's coming forward and getting ready to make contact. So we might, instead of being on the heel and on the tip of the toe here, we might be more lifting the heel and this foot kind of rising, because now it's coming up, getting ready to get planted, right? And this point here, it's bent a little bit because the foot is getting lifted up, getting ready to step off. We get this foot here. Maybe a little bit more on the heel bank. No, it's not going to work for us there because that position's a little bit off. So let's just pull it up just a little bit. That's good enough right there. Keep that pole vector out front. Keep this one out front. Good. We're going to the highest position. So we're going to start to get that bent a little bit this way. A little bit more that way. That pushes this down just a little bit. Something like that. Or we keep the legs straighter, which I'd probably actually prefer more. Keep this a little bit higher, thus so. And then here we're going to think about like, well, if I'm really going to start to put my hands out to protect myself, I might straighten those fingers out a little bit more. Getting ready, because we don't typically tend to keep our hands straight, our fingers straight and stuff as we start to fall, because we don't want to jam our fingers, so we kind of bend those fingers back and get them ready to plant with fingers out, getting ready for that hand to make contact with the ground if necessary. So let's do thumb like this. Let's go ahead and do like a thumb twist on that. Take the root. Let's get that in there a little bit like that. Thumb root. Oops. No, that's the wrong way for that twist. Let's get that back. Thumb drop. That's what probably causing that weirdness. Let's do that. Boom. There we go. And let's go ahead and dig these thumbs back down to 0, just so we get a better start position for that. Let's look at this index spread. Be a little bit more here. That's a little bit better. And let's look at this thumb drop then. Something like that. Let's start with that root. It's going to come out here a little bit better. Still feels kind of weird there, doesn't it? Let's get here. It's fine. Wow, there's something with it. With that a little bit. With that thumb. And it's joint orientation. Go with that for now. It's kind of wonky. I'll take a closer look at that and some other. So what's this spread here? Oh, thumb spread. Let's do the drop back. Do that. Back. Twist. Then the root. There we go. So we get that thumb out a little bit there, like that. There we go. That's better. So this thumb spread, that one's fine. Thumb root. Spread it out a little bit. Let's give it a little bit of a twist. And then we'll take this index, kind of spread it out. Pinky, spread it out a little bit. And we'll give the finger root a little bend back. And the middle root a little bend back. He's got some long middle fingers, so something like that will be a little bit better. Okay. So there's some change there. And he's at the highest point, getting ready to kind of step off. Let's give him a little bit more bend in this foot. So there's a little bit more on the ball of the foot. So looks like he's kind of heading up. And let's grab the arm controls and body control. Move him up a little bit higher. Okay, we can always cut back on that, but something like that. We want him to be rising, right? For sure. All right, so that's not too bad, I'm thinking. Again, I'm not going to know until I look at it and scrub through it. So he's getting ready to step off. Okay, so dum, dum, and then dropping off. Okay, and then the weight will really shift forward at that point, and we'll get that back foot rolling off and heading forward. Okay, so let's take that. We'll work with that for now. And then again, like a little bit later on, we'll take a look at it a little bit closer. Now, here's where you're going to turn your NURBS curves off and really kind of start to look at how that motion is happening. See that right arm kind of comes in and then pops back out here, like right there. Not sure if I like that. Front arm, not so bad. It stays a little stiff, a little too long. I want that wrist to follow through. You know, on this down phase here, I want those wrists to drop. And then on that up phase there, the wrists have come up. And then when he drops down here, they're actually going to bend back even more. So I can see that like right away because I want those to flow. So I'm just going to go ahead and give that a tweak. Give that a rotation like this. Like that. This one here. I'm looking at that arm coming forward right there. And then it drops out back again. So I might not want to bring that one as far forward. I want to keep it out to the side a little bit more. So it comes forward, but maybe not as much. Maybe that's a little too cautious as he moves forward. So maybe this position will be a little bit better. There, so it kind of comes forward a little bit, but then it comes, back, and we can overlap that a little bit in the next one as well. So that's the start of that. Feels a little stiff, not too bad. Got a little wobble in that head area, like right here, like right in there. It kind of drops forward and bends forward maybe a little too much. Now that I'm looking at it, so let's take a look at that curve. And again, I'm kind of tweaking stuff as I go here on this. So we can see this bend forward. You can see that one. It's a little wobble right there. This is the X. This controls that. So do we want to wobble? No. Do we want this? Maybe so. Do we want down and back up? Maybe we want down and stay down for a little bit longer. Body control. That's pretty smooth. Neck control. There we got a little wobble. Let's bring that down. And then, so as this heads forward, maybe right in here we give a little bit of a bend. Right there, so we have a little follow through. And we get to this up portion here. When he gets to this point, maybe this is where that head actually comes up a little bit because he's dropping off. Okay, so I'm just giving some value tweaks here to work on how things flow. Okay. I can probably compress that back a little bit and work on that some more. But for now, I think it's working pretty good. Okay. This might be heading back. There's a pretty quick direction change here with the rotation, which is not impossible to do. This stuff here comes forward, kind of pops back. Maybe he just needs to come forward a little sooner. So he's a little bit more in through here. Let's look at this Z. Focus in. There we go. So maybe he just needs to be a little bit more forward. See how that moves more in a straight line, and that doesn't pop as much. It's a little bit more subtle. And maybe this stays back a little bit more. And then when we get into an auto tangent, that'll round out some, so it won't be as harsh. Okay, we'll check that out a little bit closer as we continue to go. We may do some tweaks there as well. Okay, so that is that for that section. Getting them a few steps forward and stepping off. And we'll work on the down, that weight shifting forward, and getting back up, doing the pause, and then just getting him towards the door. Now I can check this angle. This is my original shot. See how that looks? That actually looks kind of nice from that angle, right? So I can check this. I could set up another camera on the other side too, just to make sure. See if I don't want to go for that other angle instead. But I always come back to this to kind of take a look. But all the time, 100% of the time, we're editing from this vantage point so we can see what's going on around the character. Just get better poses, better physics as we're moving forward.